Today we're going to talk about the two guys that have to show up to work if Oklahoma's going to stop that Army triple option, and all that's coming up after the bumper.
What do you mean you don't subscribe to my son's YouTube channel?
Mama, no!
Just snap the damn ball, RJ.
What's up, kid folk? It's RJ Young. I am not on a step mill. Consider hitting the like and subscribe button because I upload a video every single day. It's always OU related, college football related, sports related. We have a good time. So we're going to talk about the two guys that got to show up to work against Army on Saturday. But first, we got to talk about the 7 guys who have been doing the most for Oklahoma over the first 3 games of the season. And the first one is Neville Gallimore. This is a guy that we've all been on. We've all said needs to have a breakout season, and he has to hold down that nose tackle spot like nobody before him, including Devontae Lampkin. You could probably go back to Jordan Phillips and say that Jordan Phillips was the best nose tackle to play in this scheme that Mike Stoops brought with him when he returned in 2012. But my goodness, Neville Gallimore has more tackles than anybody else on the defensive line. And that's saying something considering he plays the zero technique. And the zero technique usually goes head up against the center, but frequently takes on double teams. And that's really his job in Mike Stoops' scheme and in Mike Stoops' front more often than not, is to command double teams and to soak up the line play. But when they go to 4 down linemen, you can see Neville Gallimore really pinning his ears back and going after people. Over the first 3 games, Gallimore has 12 tackles, including 3 tackles for loss and a sack. That'll get it done. If he puts that together for 12 games and that magnifies out into 4 or 5 sacks, I gotta believe that Neville Gallimore has been carrying his weight as the nose tackle in Mike Stoops' scheme. And from all accounts, from the folks who watched the game live, to the replay, to what the coaches have had to say about what the defensive line was doing against Iowa State, they played probably their best game all season, especially when considered that Iowa State frequently had 7 guys in protection of their quarterback, and they still got at least 1 sack. The next guy is running back Trey Sermon. Now, I know a lot of folks aren't as high on Trey Sermon as they have been over the last 12 months, but what Lincoln Riley said out loud is that Trey Sermon is the #1 tailback for Oklahoma heading into the game against Army. And I think that speaks to his work ethic and practice, as well as his production on the field. Now, I know he had that bad game against UCLA, but he also has 156 yards on 29 carries, which is 5.4 yards per carry. I know a lot of folks are really in on TJ Pledger and they're buying up all the stock there, but Kennedy Brooks has all but been forgotten about. But by all accounts, he is a big play guy, and we got to see that in the spring game. So I expect to see more Kennedy Brooks as we progress. But Trey Sermon is the guy, and I think against Army, he can really get his footing, and he could be poised for a breakout performance. Next guy is wide receiver Marquise Brown. We all know what kind of a ball player Hollywood is, but now he's getting on draft radars. As a matter of fact, Matt Miller at Bleacher Report has him as a sneaky pick in the 1st round right now, along with another guy that I really want everybody to start keeping their eye on. His name is O'Shane Zimmermanez, and that dude from Old Dominion can pin his ear back and get after people, but Hollywood Brown is showcasing his speed, he's showcasing his playmaking ability, and I think he's a guy that NFL teams could be looking at as not just a deep threat, but as a guy who can return kicks and punt returns. Even though you haven't seen a lot of that for what he's done at Oklahoma, you just see him breaking records. His own record. He had 189 yards in the first half against Iowa State to break his previous first half yardage record of 178 last year against Oklahoma State. But more than that, he had 139 yards receiving in the first quarter against Iowa State, including that 75-yard touchdown that we know about. But that also broke a school record. So Hollywood Brown broke 2 school records in 1 half of football just by catching them. He also is forming a kinship with Kyler Murray that is getting to be special. More on Kyler Murray in a minute. Next guy is the guy that everybody has been high on since he signed his letter of intent. That is Brendan Buki Radley-Hiles, who is playing the Tony Jefferson position of nickelback, and he looked good doing it up until Iowa State. He had 8 tackles, which was pretty good, but he also had a bunch of missed tackles for which he got dinged for, I'm sure, in film session. But he's the guy in that secondary that I don't worry about bouncing back. I expect him to come out against Army when he can get on the field, because who knows what kind of scheme Mike is going to truck out there for that triple option. And he'll be an asset, because he's been an asset on this defense, and he's been consistent in a secondary that craves consistency. He also ranks 4th on the team with 15 total tackles, and is second to only corner Parnell Motley in pass breakups. Brendan Buki Radley-Hiles is pulling his weight. The next guy is safety Justin Broyle. Justin Broyles had a breakout game against Iowa State. Whenever he was coming downhill, he was wrapping folks up, putting them on the ground. He had 10 tackles, and that is interesting because he is the first freshman defensive back, even though he's a redshirt freshman, to notch 10 tackles in 1 game of football since Tony Jefferson did it against Cincinnati in 2010. That was also just the 10th time ever that a freshman defensive back has had 10 tackles. Justin Broyles has announced his arrival, and he might have taken over that job from Khalil Halton permanently, which I know there's a lot of folks who watch the channel want to happen. I like Khalil Houghton. Maybe he'll bounce back, but Justin Broyles has certainly earned the opportunity to start at the safety position. The next guy is linebacker Curtis Bolton, who shocked everybody by being announced the starting will linebacker for a job we all thought would go to Caleb Kelly. And all he's done since he got the job is lead the team in tackles with 23, to go along with 3 tackles for loss and 1.5 sacks. Now, he had 2 terrible plays against Iowa State where he got showed up. So it's saying something that Curtis Bolton is starting, no doubt, but it's saying something more, that he's the biggest reason for why Caleb Kelly is considering redshirting 2018. Remember, a 5-star linebacker in Caleb Kelly, a 2-year starter, is considering redshirting because the play of Curtis Bolton. That should tell you everything you need to know about the way that Curtis Bolton has played football through the first 3 games of the season. But the last guy that everybody knows about, that I still need to keep yelling about, is Kyler Murray. My goodness. Kyler Murray's the Booby Miles of this offense now that Rodney Anderson got hurt and he's out for the season. But he's playing like it, and the national folks are paying attention. He is the favorite to win the Heisman, even ahead of Tua Tagovailoa, who might be leading the most prolific Alabama offense in history, let alone be up for the Heisman Trophy himself. And I think this is speaking to Kyler as a quarterback. And I know there's the Baker-Kyler comparisons and the Kyler-Lamar Jackson comparisons, but Kyler Murray is a singular figure unto himself. The things that he can do with a football in his hands and while running away from folks are just highly irregular. All right? You're not likely to see another quarterback like Kyler Murray ever. And that's saying something because you're not going to see another quarterback like Baker Mayfield ever. That's 2 once-in-a-generation quarterbacks in 2 seasons of football at Oklahoma. Count your lucky stars that you get to watch him play football, because I do. Now to the guys that have to absolutely show up to work to beat Army's triple option on Saturday, and those are the 2 linebackers in the middle, man. Kenneth Murray Jr., Curtis Bolton. The fullback dive is coming straight at you, and he's going to come with a load of steam, and he's going to say, tackle me, or we're going to eat you alive. And the fullback at Army, Darnell Woolfolk, is averaging 7.5 yards per clip. So he's obviously trucking folks, and folks are getting out of his way. So now the 2 guys leading the team in tackles, Kenneth Murray Jr. and Curtis Bolton, get to finally earn that cowboy collar and earn their stripes as Oklahoma linebackers. This is the kind of game those guys should live for. And if the game is won, it will be because Kenneth Murray Jr. and Curtis Bolton stopped the run in the middle, forced that pitch outside, forced Kelvin Hopkins to carry the ball and get hit repeatedly. Those are the 2 guys that you need to be watching if you're paying for the pay-per-view game. And I am, so that's me. I'm going to watch the game. Of course I am. I'm going to recap it too. But I also think we need to take into account the value of a true sophomore starting at middle linebacker and a senior starting alongside him. I think the duo is sneakily really good, man. It's almost like Emmanuel Bill and Kenneth Murray Jr. last year if Kenneth Murray Jr. had a year of play under his belt, and he does. So I am really, really encouraged by the play of those 2 linebackers inside, because between those 2 guys and Ryan Jones, you can make an argument, and I do, that those 3 guys make Mike Stoops' scheme work, whether it's a 4-2-5, a 3-3-5, or a 3-4. And I think as Kenneth Murray Jr. and Curtis Bolton continue to make tackles, continue to make plays, you'll see the defense begin to get better. And the defense has to close the gap on where it's been over the past 6 years if Oklahoma is going to get back to the college football playoff for a 3rd time and get into the national championship game for the first time since the inception of the college football playoff. All right, that's it for me. Deuces.